to the world of Street Fighter 3. Prepare for battle.
Hello and welcome to Castar Reviews, and today we're talking about the Street Fighter 3 trilogy. Most fighting game players are more familiar with the latest installment, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which had a long, fruitful run in the competitive scene. But to the average gamer, these games can look weird when coming from the Alpha series. For some reason, Capcom decided that the Street Fighter 3 series was going to discard everyone from Street Fighter 2 and Alpha save for Ryu and Ken. According to some people, Street Fighter 3 New Generation wasn't even going to have them, and Ryu and Ken were added because people would have been pissed off otherwise. Which makes sense. Imagine buying Tekken and instead of Heihachi, Kazuya, and Jin, it had a bunch of random characters no one's ever heard of. Still, Street Fighter 3 got two sequels, subtitled Second Impact and Third Strike, which softens the blow a bit. But I don't want to lay my cards on the table just yet, so let's dive into the story. Without further ado, this is Street Fighter 3. As stated a few sentences ago, Street Fighter 3 New Generation gets rid of every character from the previous games except for Ryu and Ken. Also, this is supposed to be far into the future, where Ken has a son now and Shadaloo is nowhere to be found. Canonically, this is the end of the timeline, with Street Fighters 4 and 5 here to fill the yawning chasm that is the events between Super Turbo and this game. Here we have Ibuki, a ninja, Alex, our new main character from New York, Sean, Ken's protege, Necro, a failed super soldier experiment by the Illuminati, Oro, a hermit, Elena, a Kenyan dancer, Dudley, a British boxer, and twins Yun and Yang, who were actually descendants of Lee from the first game. Oh yeah, the Illuminati. So basically, Street Fighter 3 Shadaloo stand-in is the Illuminati, run by Gil, a massive asshole with an even bigger god complex, who is one of the worst boss fights in Street Fighter history, but we'll get there. Second Impact introduces us to Urien, Gil's brother and rival to his throne, Hugo, another character from Final Fight, and the return of Akuma. Much like in the Alpha series, the first one is not canon, but unlike the Alpha series, Street Fighter 3 Second Impact has exactly the same arcade endings as the New Generation, making it even more redundant than it already is. The main plot threads show Alex trying to get revenge on Gil for badly injuring his best friend Tom, and Ibuki attempting to steal files from the G Project, which is a super soldier program that created Necron 12. Also, Urien tries to take over the Illuminati from Gil and then gets promoted to president, but Gil pulls an everything-proof shield and says, "Fuck you, I'm the Emperor now," which is above president, but nobody knows about it. In the B story, Dudley is trying to get his car back from Gil, Ryu is trying to get stronger as per usual, Ken gets punched in the dick by his son Mel, and Sean continues his training by getting beat up by Ryu. The weirdest inclusion so far here is Oro. According to lore, Oro is the most powerful fighter in the series who fights with one arm tied behind his back to give his opponents a fighting chance. Doesn't that sound interesting? It does, but there's barely any other information on him. This is the problem with a lot of Street Fighter games. You have really interesting characters that you want to know more about, but because it's a fighting game, you get barely anything. Okay, mini tangent over. Back to Second Impact, Hugo is looking for a tag team partner for himself and Poison, and Akuma fights Ryu and learns a new evil technique. Moving on to Third Strike, and we get the return of Chun-Li. It's criminal she wasn't in the first two games, who apparently took down Shadaloo herself. Bravo. Her ending sees her saving a bunch of children from Gil. We also have Remy, who is the series' first French representative. I hate Remy as a character. He is a fighter, but he hates fighting, because his dad left his family to become a fighter. Also, his sister is dead, but he cryogenically froze her and left her in a lake. Oh god, he's so weird. But at least his ending shows him moving on with his life, but why the fuck is he in a fighting game? The other new Third Strike characters consist of 12, a super soldier who hunts down Necro, Makoto, a karate girl who upon winning gets a ton of people to come to her dojo, and Q, a possible serial killer or robot who we know literally nothing about. The story is definitely more interesting than before, but I feel like I've seen this before. With some minor differences, this is the same plot we've been seeing since Super Turbo. The new characters themselves are really interesting design-wise. While characters like Dalsum, Zangief, and Guile aren't here, their moves and playstyles are present in these characters. I'm intrigued by the new things narrative-wise that Street Fighter 3 does, but it certainly doesn't meet me halfway by telling me anything that's going on. We have graduated to the CPS3 arcade board, and the Street Fighter 3 games are some of the best looking and sounding Street Fighters to date. Or should I say, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike is one of the best looking and sounding Street Fighter games to date. Allow me to explain. The sprite work in all of these games is excellent, and the technology granted by the CPS3 board gave way for characters like Elena, who might not have been possible on older hardware. As a matter of fact, the entire reason that Gil was colored half red and half blue was to show off the capabilities of the CPS3 board. Chun-Li also has a ton of frames of animation, and everything looks and feels great. The music is also stellar. Much like the previous games, every character has their own theme and stage. In Street Fighter 3 New Generation and Second Impact, you get stage transitions in between rounds, like the bridge you fight Elena on getting cut down, or now fighting Yoon inside the Chinese restaurant as opposed to outside. It's great, and the music can sometimes change along with it. For New Generation, I wouldn't really recommend the soundtrack because Second Impact and Third Strike blow it out of the water. For Third Strike, there's more of a hip-hop influence, which fits really well with the aesthetic of the game. The OSTs of Second Impact and Third Strike are my favorite Street Fighter soundtracks of all time. I can listen to Alex and Elena's themes from Second Impact all day, and I love the themes of Makoto, Dudley, and Q in Third Strike. Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, and Akuma get new themes, but they're hit and miss. I like Ryu's theme and Chun's, but Ken just reuses Alex's theme, and Akuma's theme doesn't have the same feel as his old one. The one thing I'm not a fan of in the first two games presentation-wise is the voice acting and sound effects. It's a really big step that they were able to get English voices for non-Asian characters, but it can be pretty bad at times. When it isn't mixed so low that you can't hear it, character voices sound like they're underwater. The worst examples are Alex and Yang. They changed the voice cast when moving on to Third Strike, so here's a comparison.
You can't escape.
You win.
Night and day. The sound effects are the same deal. They have that same muffled underwater sound, and I have no idea why that is. Playing through these titles makes me want to make a Franken game with the combined soundtracks of Second Impact and Third Strike, the gameplay HUD of Second Impact, and the everything else of Third Strike. The presentation is alright in New Generation and Second Impact, but Third Strike perfects it. Going on from the precedent set by Alpha 3, Street Fighter 3 allows you to choose options that best fit your playstyle, in this case the Super Arts. At the character select screen, you get to pick what super attack you get to do when your meter fills up, but that's not all, because depending on the super art picked, it changes the size of your meter and how many full charges you can store. It wasn't all that clear how many supers one meter held in New Generation, and I'm just going to say right now that I'm barely even touching on New Generation because Second Impact does the exact same things, but much better. Anyway, this changes how some characters play and makes some supers more worthwhile because you get more supers from a full charge, and more meter to use for the new EX attacks. Second Impact introduces a mechanic that is used by a ton of fighting games nowadays, EX attacks. How they work is you pay a fraction of your super meter charge to perform more powerful versions of special moves. That's why you want to have as big a super meter as possible, so you can do a lot of EX moves. Akuma is the only character that doesn't have the ability to do EX moves, I guess because he does too much damage already. Speaking of super arts, these are some of the most creative super attacks Street Fighter has ever had. From Oro having 3 objects float around him, to Urian's projectile reflector, and 12 literally transforming into its opponent, you can have a really fun time experimenting with these attacks. Arcade mode in Second Impact and Third Strike is structured similarly to what we've seen before. You fight a set number of battles, then you meet up with a rival character, trade some dialogue, and fight them. Aside from the arcade endings, this is where you're getting the most out of your story. It's a fun and nice step up from the Alpha games, although Gil is probably the worst Street Fighter boss so far. Worse than Sagat from Street Fighter 1, because not only does he read your inputs and attack you when you have no time to react, not only does he do insane damage, but he can also resurrect himself when he dies with full meter. Thankfully, you can hit him before he reaches full health, but it's such an annoying boss fight, and I never look forward to fighting him. One fun thing about Third Strike's arcade mode is that you can pick which character you fight out of 2 options, which is awesome. I usually pick characters depending on stage music, but if you pick Urian before the second to last battle, then you fight your rival instead of him. Going back to the actual game mechanics, the stun mechanic has been quantified with a small meter below the character's health bar. No more random stun from Street Fighter 2, thank God. Also, the major mechanic that almost everyone knows the Street Fighter 3 series for is parrying. It's like blocking, but much harder. If you push forward on the stick right when an attack is about to hit you, you parry it, and put yourself in an advantageous position to attack. The timing is pretty strict, and you might find yourself parrying accidentally while trying to execute special moves. Look up Evo moment number 37, and you'll know more about the utility of parrying than I can ever tell you in this review. As interesting as Second Impact is gameplay-wise, Third Strike is the definitive Street Fighter 3 experience, no doubt about it. If you haven't played it yet, I'd highly recommend it. Before I let you go, here are my thoughts on the 30th Anniversary Collection as a whole. While I can appreciate having all these games in one package, I wish this wasn't just an arcade ROM dump. I would have loved to have the superior Third Strike Online Edition, Alpha 3 Max, and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. What we do have is fine, but better versions of these games are out there. I do enjoy the museum mode and the in-game trivia that shows you how to select hidden characters. Next time we're moving into the modern age with Ultra Street Fighter 4, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching this episode of Castar Reviews. Subscribe for more content from me and follow me on Twitter for production updates. See you soon.
Third strike is what counts, you know, and you can get it too. Don't think that I can knock you out, knock you out, knock you out. Don't think that I can knock you out. I've been waiting for this moment. This is what I spill my blood for.